Howdy there, folks. It's Geist, and in today's video, we're going to be having a discussion on the state of bows in Destiny 2. Specifically, I'm going to be answering those interview questions that we asked Deadream and Steezel a little while ago, just to give my perspective on them. These are questions that were posted by you, the viewers, a little while back, and we tried to answer most of them. And most importantly, I'm going to answer whether or not I think bows are meta and what their current place is in the meta of the game. So to start off, the first question is, how would I define my style? I would say that it's balanced. I am a jack of all trades, master of only Wishender. Mostly because Wishender is my favorite bow. It's just fun to use, so that's why that's probably the bow that I'm the best. But I enjoy all the bows. There's fun combos, and they're all great in their own way. And so whatever bow you use is great, and I like all of them. It took me a while to really settle on the fact that Wishender is just my favorite, so I kind of stick with it. The next question is, what is my greatest strength? Well, my greatest strength is probably Wishender. No, I'm just kidding. I would say it's my determination. I definitely did not start off as even remotely a decent bow player, or even a decent player in general with Destiny. But just through sheer force of will, I've kept playing and kept playing and kept playing, and over time I've found myself getting more confident and attaining a much greater skill than I had to begin with, even if I'm still not the best, of course. Next question is, how do you counter me? Oh, well, that one's easy. Any weapon with low time to kill. 0.67 type things, high impact pulses, and certain SMGs, things of that nature. There's not a lot I can do with that, especially with latency that sometimes happens. I just find myself getting my head ripped off before I can even think about firing the second arrow on the bow. So I would say high time to kill weapons. And, of course, victim just like anybody else is to special weapons that instantly kill you. So I would say those are my greatest weaknesses. So I guess to sum it all up, the meta. What perk combo would I like to see on a bow? There's not really a specific perk combo that comes to mind, though I'd love to see the return of Archer's Gambit, maybe in some, nerfed state so that it's, or maybe reworked state so that it's just as good for controller players as it is M&K. But anyways, what I would really like to see is a catalyst for Wishender, and specifically I would like to see Impulse Amplifier for Wishender, just because it would make the half draws a little bit more consistent, and Wishender could really greatly benefit from that additional 20 reload. And in general, I think, and I would hope, that it wouldn't make the weapon overpowered, but it might entice more people to use it properly and use it by itself instead of bow swapping with it, like you see so commonly. To all players, new and veteran, what tips would you give? I would say don't be discouraged. I'm far from the best player in Destiny. I'm far from the best bow player in Destiny. But through sheer tenacity, I have bettered myself, and I've gotten better, and I've just kept at it. And that would be my advice to you. And there's nothing that makes me special in that regard. I would say that anybody could do. And just keep at it, and then eventually, before you know it, it's all going to start to click, and you're going to be a great bow player in no time. Am I on controller or mouse and keyboard? I am a controller main who dabbles in mouse and keyboard. And, input wars aside, I say just use whatever input you're comfortable with. They both have their ups and their downs. M&K has better precision aiming, but they can't make any mistakes. Controller player has to be responsible for 95% of their aim, but they can make tiny mistakes because they've got the correction of that last little percentage of aim assist that's helping you out. And everything else is pretty much negligible. On that note, I use 13 sensitivity on controller or mouse and keyboard, regardless of which one I'm playing on. Specifically, I think my mouse is an 800 DPI. But I'm a weirdo on the mouse because I use sort of a hybrid aim. I use wrist aim for fine movements, and then I use my whole arm for if I'm making a more sweeping motion or spinning around or something like that. What do I think the difference is between newer and veteran players? Well, that's easy. Time played. And that's just the short answer, and it kind of ties into a lot of other things I'm saying. More veteran players they've just played more, and that's it. And finally, and I think this is the question that everybody really wants to know the answer to, are bows meta? No, I don't think they're meta. I think, and kind of back to what Deadream said, some things in the game have just been nerfed around them so that they seem stronger. I wouldn't even say it's just that. Right now, currently, bows are getting a lot more attention just because they recently got buffed. And really, it wasn't much of a buff. All it was is that lightweight bows got brought up to parity with precision bows, so now they don't feel as inconsistent as they did. But that doesn't mean that bows are meta. It just means that one of them is now more usable. And immediately, when even though lightweights are the ones that got the biggest change there, what you're seeing mostly precision players still. And a lot of them are bow swapping. They're either bow swapping with Wishender, or they're just using Le Monarch and bow swapping. You're just seeing a lot of bow swappers. And that's kind of what's sort of been rekindled in my eyes is I'm suddenly seeing a heck of a lot more bow swappers than I used to see. And not a lot of people are really actively trying to learn how bows work when you're just using them by themselves. And unfortunately, right now, I think that's sort of the biggest problem is all the bow swapping. That sort of segues into the next bit of this question, which is how do you feel about the outcry? I think it's overhyped. I don't think bows are meta. They're not now the dominant thing in the game. They're not immediately better than all the other primaries. Yes, it's true, they do deal some nice chunk damage, and they do have a lot going for them, and I do enjoy the style of them, but they don't immediately beat any other primary that has a higher TTK. I am a fairly confident bow player, but I get murdered all the time by hand cannons, pulses, and SMGs. Those are typically the big three. Sidearm players and scout players are a little more rare, but they still have a better TTK than me, and they could kill me just the same as anybody else. It really just depends. If I get rushed in the open by somebody and they have good aim, there's not a whole lot I can do other than maybe try to swap to my shotgun to clean them up. That goes into the next question of, do I think that bows need a nerf? I don't think that bows themselves need a nerf. I think they're fine and people are just kind of overreacting to them. Yes, they're seeing more usage because they got to change. That is literally the trend with every other weapon in the history of Destiny patches. Anytime something gets a change, people start playing with them for that season, and then they start to die down. By the time next season starts, you guys are going to see a big decrease in bow usage, mark my words. And, you know, there's still going to be the gimmick of the bow swap, and that's still going to be annoying, and I do hate that that's been rekindled, but that is the nerf that I think that really needs to happen. I don't think that bows themselves need a nerf, but I think something with quick swapping with two primaries involving a bow needs to be dealt with a little more harshly, because it is one of the most frustrating things to play against. Weapons that are able to kill in ridiculously fast TTKs are typically balanced out by some form or fashion, like, for instance, SMGs that can do it. You know, they've got to be in relatively close range. Some of them can reach out a little farther, but they mostly have to be CQ. Pulse rifles have a spread. You have to manage that spread. You have to aim a little more strictly than you would with some other primaries, and they don't quite award as many headshots as some of the other primaries. And those are two of the fastest killing weapons that we're talking about there. There are certain sidearms that can kill in 0.6, but, you know, obviously those are also close range weapons. The thing that sucks about pairing, let's say, a bow and a hand cannon, which is predominantly the bow swap thing that you're going to see, is that it effectively just skips the TTK drop of using a bow. You just go, you pull back the bow, and then bang, bang, somebody's dead. You're killing about as fast or faster than something like a high-impact pulse rifle, and you're only having to use 2 shots with no spread. And bows and hand cannons both have very forgiving headshot boxes. So it's not very difficult to do. Anybody that plays around with them for an afternoon can pull that off, and it really gives bows a bad name. And that's probably my least favorite thing about that playstyle is that, you know, just me personally, and then a few other bow users I know, we want to get kills on our bows. I don't want to be that guy that you see that pops up in a Crucible match and you see that I've got on a bow and a hand cannon and I've got 10,000 kills on the hand cannon and almost none on the bow. Well, it just feels like I'm just using a cheesy build and I'm not even using the bow. And so to end this little rant, I don't think that bows need a nerf. I think bow swap needs a nerf because it gives true bow mains a bad rep. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. You know, I'm always happy to talk to y'all, and any questions you have, please don't be shy. I'll be happy to answer them as best I can. Thank you all for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.